Hi, beloved. My name is Krista Pettiford, and I'm here to talk to you about walking in your calling with clarity, confidence, and courage. Today, I want to take it a different way. I want to talk about your purpose and your mate and being careful about who you date. This is kind of a veer off into a different topic for me about relationships, but it's something that's dear to my heart, and I don't normally get very personal. But I think it's time to share a little bit with those of you that are single. Um, so God calls us for a specific purpose, and He calls us down a specific path. And in that, who we connect with, who we come into covenant with, plays a significant role. The churches that we go to, the friendships and the company that we keep, but also our relationships. That's like the second biggest decision that you will make in your life. And many women, if you're like me, you may have done it without thinking, without Christ the first time. Your marriage or your relationship may have survived your life BC, before Christ. And then some women like myself, it didn't survive. And what I mean by survive is your relationship, your marriage, going through that narrow path and that narrow way. Oftentimes, when we find Christ, the relationships that we are in when we find Christ, and sometimes even unfortunately, marriages don't make it into our new life. And so, a lot of Christian women find themselves single, find themselves divorced, to men who wanted them to compromise, who it wasn't even good enough to stay and be faithful. But sometimes there's just a wedge that comes in between when you have a believer and an unbeliever. So I want to go over why it's so important and what I've found after my life of being single after being divorced. But before I do that, I just want to say that I am in no way an expert. I'm not a relationship expert. I'm not coming as a relationship expert or giving advice from someone who has all these different degrees and specialties or life coaching in that area. I'm a woman of God who loves God and has been married and then divorced and single for a long time, and has dated one person since I've been divorced and away from my husband, and that's been like a decade or something, and met someone last year and is no longer dating that person. So first of all, so I just want to talk about what I know. It's so important for us to invite God into our relationship so that we don't go through the same thing again. Because if God has called you and He has a plan for your life, then that plan, the person that He puts you with, or that He has for you, has to line up with His call on your life. Otherwise, it will hinder you and it will hinder them. Now, there's many good men out there. That doesn't mean that if you meet a good man, that he's the one for you. You can meet someone who's a good man, but if your purposes don't align, your God-given purposes don't align, that means that may not be the one for you. And now I don't believe that in soulmates in the way that some people do, like there's just one person for you, and if you don't find that one person, then it's X-nay for you. Because what if that person is in China? But God being who He is, He wouldn't put the person in another continent that He had for you if that was how He was doing things. But I believe that God brings two mature believers together that are on the right path and plan, and that we do have some say in it. But I believe that the way that God works is He will tell us if that person is not aligned with us. I didn't know that before, when BC, before Christ, but I believe that, sometimes what we do is we jump the gun, and we get in a relationship, and some women even get married to someone who's not right for them. And that doesn't mean that they're not right for somebody else. It means that if God is taking you this way and he's taking that person another way, and you don't have the same values, and the things that matter to you don't matter to them, then you guys are always going to clash. And how can two walk together unless they be agreed? Now, you have to discern by the Spirit, because a lot of times what you'll get is someone who says yes to everything that you say that you want or that you're looking for, because they want to be with you. But the truth of the matter is only God can tell you if they're going to measure up to that in the long run. If they're going to be good for their word in the long run. So it's very important when you're dating to bring God in and ask him right away, is this the person that you have for me? Some people date just to date, but as Christians, we should date for marriage. We should court and find out. And courting is a time to find out if this person is somebody that you want to marry, if they want to marry you, if you guys can build a life together and love each other and honor God and have a covenant marriage and build a kingdom family and marriage and walk together in purpose. And so I think love and attraction is so important, but so is your kingdom purpose. And so oftentimes women fall in love, and men do too, but they don't stop to ask God, is this person in line with my purpose? Is this the person I'm supposed to walk to? They don't stop and ask the right questions. And not only does it take to ask the right questions of the person, because like I said, they can tell you anything that you want to hear, but it's that Holy Spirit check that will say yes or no. And you would be surprised how quick God will tell you, no, this is not the one for you, or yes, it is. And many people, the problem, beloved, is that many people override the Holy Spirit, because it's so hard to understand, because the Holy Spirit doesn't always offer an explanation when he tells you someone is not the one for you. And so you have to have a trusting relationship with the Lord. You have to know his voice, and you have to decide ahead of time before you start dating, before you meet someone, that you are in it to follow Jesus. And so if you have to choose, that you will choose God. Because God may tell you to lay something down that you wanted, someone down that you wanted to hold on to. Now, while we're not just looking for marriage, a lot of women, on the flip side of that, a lot of women who have been single, they want, calling, my work and this, that, and the other, and they miss a good man because they don't understand how to yield and how to be married, because they've been single so long. So you don't want to be so much about, trying to make a man follow you that you don't follow God and you miss the man that God has for you, because he's not willing to yield to you. But if you're going to walk in agreement and have a Christ-centered marriage, then you want to know that God has called you and ordained you to be together. So as I said earlier, God will allow you to meet people, and you have some say. Is this person attractive? Do I get along with this person? Do we have a genuine connection? Do I see myself with this person? Do I feel free to be who I am and be who God called me to be with this person? But on top of that, in all of that, you still need to hear from the Holy Spirit, because it is so important. What happens if God calls you to be in full-time ministry and your husband wants you to work? Or what happens if God calls you to the workforce and your husband wants to be a missionary and go someplace? So you really have to discuss those things and check it by the Holy Spirit, because it's not just, again, about what a person will tell you. Because men as well as women put their best foot first. They put on who you want them to be, and they put on who they think will present best to you, to the person that they're trying to get. And it's oftentimes after marriage that we find out that we didn't marry the person that we were dating. And so you have to rely on the Holy Spirit. So this video I entitled Your Purpose and Your Mate. Being careful about who you date. And so how can you be careful about who you date? You can have a series of questions that you ask this person. You can go to the Holy Spirit before you get serious with the person and get your feelings into it, because the truth is, once you really get into it with your feelings, it's harder to back out of something and to let go of someone when you have put your feelings in without asking God, is this the one for you? And God will answer you. He will tell you yes or no. And again, you have to be willing to trust him. So you can ask those questions of the person that you're dating and find out if they share your values, what they believe their purpose is, what they believe the plan of God is for them. And then ask practical things like their finances, what they believe about family, and all those things that you may not have done when you were younger. I'm 46, I'll be 47. I have 4 adult children. Believe it or not, I was a teen mom, and then I got married to my ex-husband, and I had 2 children when I met him, and we had 2 children together. And then I got married, and then we got married in that order. But before we got married, I got radically born again right after my first daughter. My second daughter was born, my baby girl, my baby of the whole bunch was born. And so we were born around the same time. And so my marriage went a different way. And I remained single for a long time, and I'm still single, but I remained single for a long time in that. But what I didn't do while I was single was ask God about dating. I think my mistake is that I waited so long for my husband to come back. I was praying for our relationship and our marriage and our family, even after he was long gone. And so I did not think about what it would be like to be single, and if I actually met somebody else. And then I met someone else, and that person and I connected and we clicked, and he was really special to me. He's still a special person to me. But when I asked God if he was my husband and the one for me, the Holy Spirit told me no. But by then I was already invested, but I had to let him go. And so we have to, and then I realized that I should have asked that before. And so many women do not. And then we get entangled into relationships. But the worst thing that I've met women, and I've counseled women who I've had to, who overrode what they know the Holy Spirit told them. And I now know how easy it is to do that, to want what you want. But we have to trust God that he knows best. And it's not always because the other person is a mess. Sometimes it's because that person does not line up with God's plan for you and his calling for you, and you may not line up with that person, and you won't know until you let go. And so you have to be careful that you choose the mate that God has for you. So many kingdom marriages break up. So many social media and Instagram marriages, even in kingdom, they're together and it looks like a lovely marriage and it looks like a lovely life and blah, 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 blah. But they married the person that the other person was presenting. They married their representative. But the real person, you get in that relationship, in that marriage, and you find out why God has checked you. And then sometimes the Holy Spirit gave you a check. And then sometimes what happens is people try to stay together and make it work, because after all, they done got into this thing. And then at the end of the day, it doesn't work and we see divorce. And so sometimes it's a hard decision, but it's better to be alone and wait for God to bring you the right mate, so you don't go off onto the wrong path. Sometimes it takes you off in the wrong path instead of the direction that God had planned for your life. I think of Catherine Kuhlman, and maybe some of you know her. She has a book called Daughters of Destiny, and it's a daughter of destiny, and it's a book about her life. And she was a mighty miracle worker in the 70s and maybe even 60s. And a woman who allowed the Holy Spirit to use her. And but she eventually got caught up with someone who God had told her to let go of. And she ended up having to divorce him. And it took her a while to get back on track with what God had called her to do. And she did recover, but never fully. And oftentimes, the enemy will use those things because he knows the best way to come at you is through your heart, to get you off track, is to send you after a man who's not right for you. And he's not going to make it look bad. He's going to make it look good. And again, the person doesn't have to be bad. They just don't align. So the disagreements, the disunity, the lack of harmony in a marriage where you know that God is not in it and God has not blessed it, even though there was nothing there that you could discern in your natural man while you were, before you were married, then it starts showing up because you don't trust. When you don't trust God and you go in, then he'll show you why he told you no. And it's harder to go with God's no because he may never show you why he said no. He just asks you to trust him that that person is not for you, to listen to the signs. And so you don't want to get off track and lose years. And I've seen so many women broken and hurt and then stuck in these relationships that don't work. And I understand because, you know, having feelings for someone and having that emotional connection is real. But we have to trust God, ladies. We have to trust God that our first call is to him, that our purpose is greatly affected by our mate. Our mate, who our purpose and our calling, our mate is tied into that. They're not disconnected. It's not, I'm over here doing my thing and then I have this mate. No, just like a man has a helpmate and a woman, and God designed the woman for him to help him do things, God designed a covering for you, and a covering that is going to protect you and keep you and allow you to blossom and grow. And when you do not get that person and you get that wrong, then things don't go the way they should go. And so as far as dating goes, be careful who you date, because what happens is you could date someone and get tied up in your feelings with the wrong person if you don't ask God and honor his answer to you about what he says, if he says the person is not right for you. So you have to be careful that you don't even enter into a courting or Christian dating relationship with someone before getting those answers. I hope this has blessed you.